Good evening, and welcome to Upstate Women in Film and Television's webinar on producing and distributing with Pippa Cross and Arianna Bocca. We've had over 30 people from all around the world register for this webinar. Thank you for joining us. After the moderated session, we are going to open it up for participants Q&A. So please feel free to add your questions to the Q&A box, and be sure to include the name of the panelist that you would like your question directed to and your name. Before we start, guys, just a few words about UPWIFT. We are a women's organization with members ranging from the base of the Hudson Valley in New York all the way to the Capital Region. We provide collaboration and support to professional women working in film, television, and digital media industries. If you're interested in joining us or donating to our cause, you can see information about that on our website at upwift.org. At this time, I'm going to introduce our moderator for tonight, which is UPWIFT's Vice President of Programming, Fran Gully.
Thank you, Sunny, and good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Tonight, we have the pleasure of hosting two very talented women in film and television, producer Pippa Cross of Crossday Productions and distributor Arianna Bocca of IFC Films. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for being with us tonight, and a big thank you for allowing us to screen your wonderful new movie, Made in Italy.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of background information on the two guests, beginning with Pippa Cross. Pippa was UK Granada Films' first head of development, commissioning and looking after Granada's first two films, both of which were Academy Award nominated and achieved substantial critical and commercial success. In 1993, she became head of Granada Films and oversaw production of the company's entire slate. In 2003, she and Jeanette Day established Crossday Productions, which has produced numerous feature films and won 2 Academy Awards, 8 BAFTAs, a Golden Bear, and the Audience Award at Sundance. Pippa regularly mentors and consults within the industry and is a former board member of the UK Film Council and of regional screen agency Screen South. She regularly tutors for Microwave and has worked consistently with young producers, directors, and writers, offering what practical advice she can. Welcome, Pippa.
Thank you.
By the way, Pippa is based in London and currently visiting Ireland, where it's 11 o'clock right now. So we really appreciate your dedication to this project and Q&A. Thank you. Arianna Bocca is the Executive Vice President of Acquisitions and Production of Sundance Selects, IFC Films, and IFC Midnight, 3 multi-platform film distribution labels owned and operated by AMC Networks. Since joining the company in 2006, Arianna has spearheaded all acquisitions at the company, acquiring the rights to some of the most critically acclaimed independent films from around the world. Under her leadership, the company has acquired over 400 films. In 2010, she was nominated to Crane's 40 Under 40 class of 2009 Rising Stars and to Move's Top 20 Power Women of 2010. Prior to joining IFC, Arianna served as head of the independent feature packaging division of the Gersh Agency in New York City and as senior vice president of acquisitions for Miramax Films. She began her career at ICM and the Steve Tisch Company. Welcome, Arianna.
Thank
We're
you.
so honored to have you both join us this evening. I would like to begin by asking each of you to describe what roles your company plays in the film process. Pippa, let's begin with you. Is Crossday Productions limited to producing, or do you do other things such as develop and finance?
I think for us in the UK, in the independent sector, the word producing kind of has to encompass both developing and financing. So we feel we do the first sort of 3 of those things. We develop, we finance, and then you get to produce. If you don't do the development and the financing, chances are you haven't got anything to produce, to be honest.
That's a good point.
But then we sort of need to partner for the other parts of the process. So we would always then look to be partnering with a sales agent on the way through, and then with distributors with the finished film. So, you know, we rely on their expertise as a route to market for the film that hopefully we've all agreed we're making together.
Okay. Arianna, same question. Is your company IFC Films limited to distribution, or does it perform other roles?
Well, we primarily are a distribution company that services films from start to finish in terms of the life of the film. We finance films, so we do get involved at earlier stages. We have, you know, for instance, Made in Italy, we acquired it just from the promo and the script. So we do get involved at various stages, not only in a finished film capacity. We don't necessarily produce because we're a small independent film company. So we rely on people like Pippa to do the day-to-day actual producing of the films. And we consider ourselves, you know, a partner, and a partner in distribution, marketing, the sales, getting the film out as best we can in the US. So we're a US company for distribution. We don't distribute worldwide.
Okay, that's good to know. Yes. Pippa, what made you decide to be a producer?
It's a good question. You ask yourself that a lot when you're doing it. I mean, going back quite a long time, as you can see, I think I've sort of subsequently worked out that it must have been all to do with the words to start with. I did English at university, and I ended up in management in television. And so, but then when my then boss said, and I mean, this literally happened one day, he said, "Pippa, I think we should make some feature films." And we were running a whole slate of drama and factual and all sorts. And, you know, I said, yeah, of course. You know, we didn't really have a clue between us, but we did have some money at the time. And so we went out to look for something that was, you know, not quite ready to go, but, you know, not far off. And what we found, by huge good luck, and I hope a little bit of good judgment, was Jim Sheridan's script of My Left Foot, to which Daniel Day-Lewis was already attached. So kind of after that, you know, I was obviously hooked. I mean, I have to say Granada were hooked too for about 10 years, because they clearly believed that anything you made would win Oscars. It was quite difficult explaining to a TV company that that isn't actually how it works. But we did have an amazing sort of blistering start that's been, you know, reasonably hard to live up to. But, you know, after that, I guess I was sort of hooked, and I've, you know, continued to live and learn. I hope, God, you continue to learn in this business.
Yes, you do. What did your role as producer, what did it entail? What were your responsibilities on this particular film, on Made in Italy?
I mean, it's kind of the sort of, you know, at some level, it's the captain of the ship, except of course the director is doing the frontline creative. So, you know, we developed the script with James. It's a very different beast now to the one it started as sort of four or 5 years ago. We partnered with Hanway initially, who are a terrific sales agent, perfect for something like this. Hanway, in due course, further down the line, were to talk to Arianna and say, you'd be a great partner for this. Meanwhile, we cast it, and that was actually a fantastic process on here. I mean, Liam is the dream casting for a film like this. I mean, as people will be not unaware, I suspect, the role which involves, you know, him having Robert, the character in the film, has lost his wife in an accident. And that felt, you know, very close to home for Liam. So, you know, there was a very early conversation with Liam's UK agent as to whether this was a horribly crass and insensitive thing to bring to him, or whether actually she would read it, which was how I pitched it. Will you read it, Sue, and tell us whether you think he should read it? Then at least it was her fault if it was crass. And and she said, actually, no, I think this would be a great thing for Liam to look at. I think he might like this. And
it was probably inspiring for him. Yeah.
I think it was many things, difficult at times, cathartic at times, an opportunity to work with his son which was his idea, to be honest. I mean, he came back and said, yes, I'd like to do it. And yes, I'd like to make this film with Michael. So, you know, that was a whole wonderful process and you know, very much, you know, motivating us all to go and give our all to it. And then, you know, you gather a mass of people in London and you shoot the stuff in London, and then you gather another wonderful mass of people we were lucky enough to find in Italy. We you know, found our locations with some difficulty, and off you go. And the rest is sort of history.
Yes, and it came out very well, by the way, I might add. Very well.
Thank you.
Arianna, what made you want to be a distributor? And what are your key responsibilities, especially with this particular movie, Made in Italy?
I'm not sure anyone sets out to be a distributor. I think like Pippa, it was really the story and the words and the craft that drew me in. I too was an English major, and I really started, my very first job was at an agency where I worked for an agent who represented writers. And so reading, you know, these scripts and then seeing them come to life on screen was really magical when I was very young. And so I think I realized very early on to take it to every next level that I could take it to in my own personal involvement in the business. And so that's what really led me ultimately to working for a distribution company, because I think what I do is bring everybody together. And I really love that. I bring the creators who have made the film together with the marketers, together with the publicists, together with a platform to be able to distribute the film to the end result, which is the audiences, to everyone out there who the film was made for. And I find that very gratifying. I find that whole process from finding a film to getting it to the audiences very gratifying. I knew very, very early on that I was never going to be a director or a writer, or I was smart enough to know to leave it to the professionals. So I figured, you know, this was something that I enjoyed and found that I was very good at, and I continue to do it. So that, you know, I've been lucky enough to work for Fine Line Features and for Miramax and for IFC now for the last 14 years. So it's really been very, very gratifying. And my responsibilities are, you know, being the person who tracks and discovers the titles and negotiates the deals to bring them in to the company, but also to manage that process as it moves through the company and goes forward to the actual release date.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Pippa, what would make you want to produce a particular film? Like what do you look for? What stands out for you?
I've been asked this before, and I'm really bad at answering this one, because it's kind of, I think it's kind of intuitive is the only way I can actually find to describe it. Partly because, you know, if you look down the list of things I've done, it's remarkably random. You know, I definitely don't fall into, you know, I don't make the same type of film again and again. I suppose broadly speaking, I've made two types of films. I've made the ones that can make you laugh and make you cry, of which I hope Made in Italy is a lovely example. And then I've made some what I would call really, really tough films. I executive produced, but sort of developed and made happen a film called Bloody Sunday that Paul Greengrass launched his much more global career off the back of. And a film in Rwanda about the genocide with Michael Caton-Jones called Shooting Dogs, which was, I would say, sadly eclipsed by another Rwanda film that same year. But both of those are films I'm remarkably proud of, and they were both very tough films to make, dealing with actual events and, interestingly enough, engaging with the people who were part of the actual events in generating our reconstruction. And you become a sort of, you become an absolute expert when you do real life films on something quite small and distinctive. And for 2 years, that is entirely your life. And you go through a stage where, you know, if anybody sort of nudged me, you know, the Rwanda button would open and I would be off. And more recently, I've made a film about someone who's suffering from sepsis, a real life story about a remarkably brave man from the UK. And those things I have found to be really important. But then, you know, it's also great to entertain people, to, you know, so I suppose I sort of rely on my instincts, and, you know, that is an unsatisfactory answer, but true.
No, it's a fine answer. And what was it that made you want to produce Made in Italy? Was it because it made you laugh and cry, both things, or?
Kind of, yes, actually, in a word. James writes really good comedy, and actually he writes smart comedy. He's witty. It
was very witty, yes.
He does all those things in person. He's an actor, so he's got, you know, a degree of charisma and persuasiveness that is very effective. But he does make you laugh. But he's also a remarkably sensitive soul, and this is a very personal story for him. He lost a parent when he was very young. He was working through with us how to bring that to the screen in a way. James has a way of describing it, which is to find hope in making tough drama, to actually, you know, end up with a positive message. And that's, you know, all quite a persuasive pitch, really. So we noodled away at it, as you do. The Italy thing is entirely, you know, added in, slightly more appealing than West London, as he explained to me, where some of the true events happened. But Italy came along, and then actually, you know, relatively late in development, we realized that we could use the sort of almost the metaphor of doing up the house as a way to track the rebuilding of the relationship between father and son. And that, I think, is where the film had found its real strength, because you're living. We have a TV series in the UK called Escape to the Chateau, which is, you know, a balmy couple doing up something in France, and people watch it, you know, with great enthusiasm. So the weasel and various fun things like that all grew as we went through, and in the end, it was something we were all going, yeah, we got to get this made. And then you set out to try and do that.
Mm-hmm. And you did it very well, I might add. Arianna, how did you acquire Made in Italy? Was it because Pippa contacted you, or what happened?
I just want to apologize. We're having a thunderstorm here, and my dog is terrified of the thunder. So I'm
come up on your lap. We'd love to see him.
I was tracking it through Hanway, and we had read the script, and then I forget at which market, it might have been AFM, they showed the promo, that they had a sales promo that they get buyers from every territory excited about. And I got very, very excited when I saw the footage, and I thought, looking ahead, I was in Berlin in February of this, I guess it was this year. Was it?
You just made it, yes.
Oh, I don't know where the time goes. In February of this year, and we closed the deal in Berlin with Hanway, because what happened really was I was looking at titles, and this is pre-COVID, so we weren't really, you know, cognizant that it was going to be what it is today. And so I was looking ahead, though, about, you know, in terms of buying films that I thought would be good for IFC. And I just thought that the spirit of the film, the actors, just everything about it felt like it was a perfect fit for our brand. And this was in February, and the previous, exactly a year ago this week, I had gone to Italy for my vacation to Tuscany. And so it was very fresh in my head. I had spent 2 weeks in Tuscany last July. And so this was very much It was absolutely the best vacation of my life. And so it was very present in my head, and I am of Italian ancestry. And so it was very much, it just felt good. It felt like the right fit. It felt like we knew how to work with James as a first time director, with the relationship between Liam and Michael, and launching Michael, who's launching an acting career right now as well. So it was really a combination of all these things where, you know, I've been doing this long enough to know that sometimes it's just gut instinct, and sometimes it's just one of those things where you know that it's the right fit and the right move. And I really felt that way. And I was really thrilled, honestly, that the deal had moved forward. And this is the second movie that we've worked with Pippa on. So, but it's been a little while. But you know, we like to try to work with the same people. And I've bought many movies from Hanway, and I really can't say enough good things about them as well. So it really just was one of those things that I feel like worked out really well. We don't always buy films off of the promos, but this one we were confident that it would, you know, I remember it was the last movie that I saw on a big screen prior to COVID shutting down, because we screened the film, we bought it off the promo, and then we screened it a couple of weeks later. I think it was like the third week of March maybe, and that Made in Italy was the last movie I saw in a theater, in a big screen.
So it's extra special for you then.
Yeah, yeah.
Because who knows when we'll be back there again.
And it was beautiful. I can attest, it looked absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure, yes. At what time frame in the production of a movie, Arianna, is it a good time to find distribution?
I mean, it really depends what kind of movie you have. I think it can be any time, and what your financing situation is. You know, everyone puts films together in a different way, and different financing, whether it's private or, you know, wherever you might be from. It's different in the UK and France and Canada versus here. So it really depends. You know, I think if you want to take it to a festival and sell it at a festival, that has always been a good way to go about it. However, that festivals it's unclear, you know, whether or not we're going to have in the near future film festivals.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a little bit tougher, and probably a whole different conversation about a virtual film festival and selling films in that capacity. In the time being, we've been screening films. We've acquired many films since March, since COVID, and we've been screening them on links, you know, versus a film festival. But I think you need to find a good representative and a sales agent, like Pippa had Hanway working with her to create the strategy of selling the movie. And it's not just the US, it's really making sure that you're selling it to all the right partners all over the world. And so, you know, I think it really depends on, you know, how your financing is put together and when you need to recoup that money.
Right. Thank you. Pippa, how do you acquire your scripts that you produce? How do you usually get them?
I don't think there is one answer to that. They arrive in all sort of shapes and sizes, to be honest. You know, there are some books in there. There's quite a lot of originals. There's quite a lot of sort of writer-directors in there. So, you know, they turn up, you know, they make their way onto my desk somehow, onto my inbox.
Well, do you mostly go through agents, or do you know, are they allowed to just submit it themselves, or do you go to festivals, or?
It's almost all now through sort of connections, if you like. I mean, no, the answer is we don't do much from agents. We're normally developing through a personal connection of some sort, someone I know in the business, a writer, or usually actually a writer-director. I've worked with relatively few non-writer directors, so where the director is more brought on later. Usually the director's attached from the beginning, and we push on. You know, sometimes it's a book. my partner and I did Vanity Fair with Mira Nair, and you know, that was just, you know, a lot of writers in the end, and you know, a long old slog. That was obviously a big book at the time. We've acquired small books. We had a producing partnership back in Granada with John Malkovich's company, Mr. Mudd, and had the absolute pleasure of working on a film called Ghost World, which I think is one of the least, you know, one of the best, not very well known films out there. It was a really terrific little film. Thora Birch in absolutely zinging, Thora Birch and Scarlett Johansson, and you know, it was one of those moments where, you know, Thora did 2 films for me. One was called The Hole and one was called Ghost World, and I don't know what she's up to now, but she must look at her 2 co-stars, who were Scarlett Johansson and Keira Knightley, and think, oh, you know, what happened to me?
We're doing very well.
Ghost World was a comic strip. You know, it was Dan Clowes's great little, you know, take on LA. An ex-boss bought Davis Abell's little book Longitude, you know, on a transatlantic flight, and sort of flung it in my direction to make a sort of Millennium 4-parter for TV. So things just sort of, they find you, actually, Fran.
Mm-hmm. And how did Made in Italy find you?
Made in Italy actually started through my fellow producer is a much younger young man called Sam Tipperhale, and Sam was approached by James's agent, you know, Alex Irwin, who I know very well. James was looking to make a short film. He knew that he ought to prove himself in some way behind the camera, and would Sam like to produce James's short, which James, being a well-connected actor, starred Nikolai Coster-Waldau and Hayley Atwell. Always helpful for your first short film. And it was great. It was funny, which is such a joy, because so many short films are, frankly, really dour. You know, there's so much suicide and paedophilia and everything else in short films that sometimes to be allowed to laugh is brilliant. And so Sam developed the initial personal relationship with James. And then when James wanted to progress this feature idea, you know, we were the obvious home, but Sam realized perhaps, you know, he and I doing it together would be a smart move. You know, it was a bigger thing than a short at this point.
Right. Okay. Arianna, what is the best way to capture a distributor's attention? Should they hire a sales agent, call you themselves, enter a film festival?
I think, well, there are a lot of different ways to catch a distributor's attention. The biggest piece of advice, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I might have to put him on my lap.
Put him on your lap. We'd love to see him.
All right, he's in his bed. So I think that really the thing not to do is to go to a distributor before the right time. So I have had many people try to get my attention or try to engage with me, and then when I'm like, okay, well, you've got my attention, you're engaged with me, let me see your film. They're like, well, it's not ready yet, and so you've sort of lost an opportunity to have a real meaningful conversation with a distributor, or a sales promo or a script. So you really have to have material ready, whether it be a script or a promo or the actual film to see. And you should always hire a reputable sales agent or an agent who will work with you to target the right distributors, because sometimes there are distributors who are just not right for you. You know, you have to understand kind of who the right distributors might be and target those. And there are so many different kinds nowadays. You've got the streamers and Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, and you have the traditional distributors like Focus or the studios, and then you have someone like IFC and Magnolia and who are more integrated, who can be nimble and flexible. Like we've been releasing films, theatrically in theaters and during COVID and drive-ins, but we also can release on premium VOD and digital at the same time. So, we've been able to really be flexible in how we distribute the film. So that's something that you should definitely really look at when you're looking at choices of distributors.
Mm-hmm. And is that how, now, Made in Italy is scheduled to come out August 7th, correct?
Yeah.
And what is going to happen with that film? How are we going to be able to view it? Will it be in the, I mean, theaters are still closed as of now, right? And
so it will be in some theaters, and it will be in some theaters that are open, and it will be in drive-ins as well across the country. It will also be available on premium VOD on your cable system, and also digital on iTunes and Amazon for rental, not to purchase, but for rental. So, you know, this was a modified distribution plan, because initially we were going to release the film in the summertime in July, traditionally in theaters, in hundreds of theaters across the country. And when we realized that it was not going to be possible, and we basically decided to flip to an integrated release.
something happened with your video. I'm wondering if it's from the storm.
Yeah, it's pretty bad storming. I don't know if you can.
We don't hear anything. We hear you speaking, but your video is frozen. Sunny, maybe you can look into.
Sorry, it's
okay. Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back.
It's literally coming down like the sky just opened up.
Oh, look at him. Now, what's his name?
Henry.
Hello, Henry. He just wanted to get in here. Pippa, in one word, what describes a great film?
Now, you warned me about this one, Fran, and I decided that I could definitely play the 11 o'clock at night, you know, in Ireland card, and therefore get a whole sentence to do that.
Okay, we'll give you a whole sentence. What makes a great film?
For me, I think I was thinking about this, and I think for me, it's always been something that just, for whatever reason, and it can actually just be because you've roared with laughter, but more often it's because you've been moved or shocked or intrigued, something that just moves your map of the world a little bit, something that shifts your understanding sort of, and then sort of becomes, if you like, part of you going forward. So that film is always with you going forward.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that's correct. Yes. That's it's always nice when you can relate to a film. Arianna, how many films would you say you acquire each year?
So in the last couple of years, we've been releasing about 30 to 33 films a year, and that encompasses numerous labels. So for instance, our IFC Midnight label, which is really our genre films, we've been doing about 12 to 15 a year. In previous years, we've released, you know, 60 to 70 films. I realized when you were reading my bio that it's outdated, because I've actually acquired over 900 films.
Wow.
In my 14 years there.
Wow, 900.
Because
I thought 400 was a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to hear that number. It's sometimes I don't remember a title, and I'm like, it's at one point when the day and date distribution model first started, we were, and the market crashed in 2008, if you can remember, back when a lot of companies were going out of business and it was hard to find homes for some of the independent films. We were acquiring a lot of films for the US market on a volume basis to populate the VOD platforms with. And so during that time frame, we had acquired quite a few films, but now we're releasing about 30 films a year, and that's pretty much inclusive of documentaries, foreign language, midnight, and films like Made in Italy, which we consider our big commercial. Like, you know, this is one of our bigger films for the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pippa, what challenges did you face while producing Made in Italy, and how did you overcome them? This is for Pippa.
I mean, everything is a challenge, but you know, I might as well pick up on Arianna's weather theme. I mean, would you believe it? But last May, so we arrived in Italy in the beginning of May 2019 with a 6-week shoot ahead of us. And for the first 5 weeks of those 6, it rained. And all the locals shook their heads and said, whoa, it hasn't been as bad as this for 50 years.
Oh, no.
That's absolutely no comfort, thank you. And so, and we had a film that we were selling Tuscany. We were selling the dream, you know. We really didn't want the rain. So, you know, film crews are remarkably nimble things when push comes to shove. I mean, I have to say, even the Italians, who are perhaps slightly less nimble than we are. You know, we somehow moved the schedule around. We went to the little town that features in the film, and then we came away again and went back to our house, and then we had to go back to the town when the sun was shining. There are scenes, you know, which I watch now in slight incredulity, because we are inside and the sun looks like it's pouring through the shutters. And what was actually happening was that it was hurling with rain. The sound is probably post-sunk because you couldn't hear yourself think. And there were chaps outside in Macintoshes holding on to great big lights that were forcing the light through the windows to look like sunlight. And the water was coming in under the doors, making puddles. So that was all a bit of a nightmare. But we kind of shot when we saw sunshine, we grabbed it. And then we cheated a little bit in post-production. We didn't have a very big budget to do this, but there is this wonderful thing called sky replacements. And quite a lot of the blue skies that you see in our version of Tuscany were created in post-production, I'm afraid. It wasn't like that on the day.
Well, movie magic, that's what it's all about, right?
I signed on for, 6 weeks, they work quite short days in Italy. So I thought, this is going to be splendid. We'll work our short days. I'll sit in a nice village square and sip a glass of wine at the end of the day. Not a bit of it, but it was a nightmare. But anyway, we got there. So
you did get there. You did get there. It worked out fine. Thank you for hanging in there.
No choice once you're on the road.
Arianna, what is Made in Italy's message?
Well, I think it probably will mean something different to different people. I think that for me, it's about family and about loving family no matter what and through the difficult times, and how a home and a place of home and security can make one overcome those things and feel secure and safe and loved. I think that the father-son relationship is really, could be a mother-daughter, it could be siblings, it could be, that familial love of home and place meaning, whatever is in your heart. So, but I think that what that family is going through and gone through, I think aspects of what is represented in the film, so many people have gone through something. And I think it's really about the strength of carrying through.
I agree. Yes, I think so. Pippa, what is the strangest thing that's ever happened to you on a movie set?
There are quite a lot of, we would all have quite a lot of these stories, I think. I'm sure everyone who's with us tonight has got their fair share. We made Paul Greengrass's Bloody Sunday actually we shot it in Dublin, partly for political reasons and partly for financial reasons back in 2000. And we had to restage what is essentially, I mean, for those who don't know, it was a very major event in the Irish Troubles, where the British Army opened fire on a civil rights march, an unarmed civil rights march, although, obviously there are arguments around the edge. So we had to restage this civil rights march, and Paul Greengrass was just beginning to get into his now settled style of many cameras all moving very fast. And so we had many cameras, and they were all ducking and diving around our 2,000 odd people. And so I said to the first AD, how do I get to watch what's happening? This is really important. Where do I stand? To which the answer was, no, if you want to know what's happening, you're going to have to go in the march. Go and see the wardrobe supervisor. So I went to see the wardrobe supervisor, who said, oh God, yes, the clothes in 1970 were really drab. You'll be fine. Literally, that was how the sentence came out of her mouth. I don't know what I was wearing, something really drab. And she said, yeah, just join the march. So, that was the sort of funny bit of it. By the end of that march, we were shooting blanks over the heads of all of us extras, and that was frankly terrifying. I mean, I'm glad to say I'm lucky enough never to have been shot at for real, but being shot at for film purposes was, certainly enough to put you off ever wanting it to happen for real. So that was a heck of a... And at the end of the day, Paul, who had gathered together real ex-members of the British Army and real people who had marched in the original march, said, no one's to go home. We're all going to the pub. We went to this vast pub, and everyone sat down, and it was, in those days, you could still smoke in pubs. It was very smoky. It was a lot of Guinness was consumed. And, people talked to each other. It was the most extraordinary day. It was like its own sort of truth and reconciliation process almost. And it stayed with me forever. And it was strange and wonderful in many ways. So that's the one I was going to share with you tonight.
Well, I'm glad you shared it.
By the way, it's an amazing film. If anyone hasn't seen it, it is truly, truly a phenomenal film.
Really good. That's, well, you're speaking to the right crowd, because you this will go all over.
Yeah.
Arianna, what is your biggest challenge to finding and distributing a film?
I would say probably the competition. I mean, I've fallen in love, every film you fall in love with aspects of it, and then someone else buys it, so you don't get to be a part of it. On a more personal level, you can still go to a theater and watch it and enjoy it. But I think that, that's the most heartbreaking part, is falling in love with a film and not seeing it through to the end. But, there are many, many, many challenges that come across and make the job difficult. And, COVID being the latest example of how we've had to reinvent and rethink how we do our business and how we, I don't know if you can hear the thunder. It's like a horror movie.
Too.
I don't know if it's coming upstate, but yeah, I mean, I think that there are it's really kind of keeping yourself open and making sure that you're open to whatever comes your way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. At this time, I think it's a good time to see if Jen has any questions. Jen, are there any questions? Your mic is off.
Hi there, everyone. We do have a few questions. I just wanted to thank everyone as an UPWIFT board member for being here with us, and Pippa and Arianna definitely for making this Q&A happen for us, and sharing Made in Italy with us, as well as sharing your own personal thoughts and ideas about everything that had gone into it to make this awesome film. We do have a few questions. I have two from one of our fellow board members, Diana. Two separate questions. So the first one is, also, thank you both for being here. I love the tender relationship between father and son. I'm wondering from a production standpoint, how long the shooting took, and also what was the production budget?
It is a great relationship, and it was an extraordinary one. It was an extraordinary process for them, I think. the scenes in the outhouse where, first of all, son, you know, has to shouts at his father, and they start digging back into the past were extraordinary, and I think and they did a wonderful job, and on the page that was around, as I recall, around 10 pages of script, and we had 2 days to shoot that, so it was tough. It was, you know, I was going to say it was hot, but actually it wasn't hot, luckily, because it was raining. But it was tense, and it was important for James as well. You know, James had written a conversation that he would like to have had, you know, with his, you know, remaining parent, and there was so much going on. So there's never enough time. We had a week in London, and we had 6 weeks in Italy, and we spent over the course of that time, I think, sort of around $7.5 million, $8 million maybe. So I think for the value that we've put on the screen, we did pretty well, particularly when you bear in mind that, you know, we weren't paying what I will loosely call the taken rate to Liam. We were paying a sort of independent film rate, but it's still, you know, top side for an indie film. So, you know, he wasn't working for scale. Bless him.
Very good. Arianna, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm sorry. We're having, it's like a tornado.
No problem. No problem. No problem.
Arianna, you're such a trooper.
I know. Hey, I was going to say, hang in there. Okay. Also from Diana, she's on the board. This is for Pippa. And so Diana's on the board of UPWIFT along with Fran, and they are doing the first ever Pitchfest. Well, we are as a group, Pitchfest in the Hudson Valley, where the film community has really been growing, especially now with the pandemic. So she was wondering if you had ever been on the pitch side of the Pitchfest, and do you think it's useful for filmmakers to do?
I think, I mean, yes, in a sense, in that we all need to be capable of selling the vision of what we're about to spend a lot of money doing. I mean, you're about to spend a lot of someone else's money very fast. So if you can't actually get it across as part of a fairly good, swift, persuasive pitch, then you're struggling. The trouble is that I've always found that the pitch is like the hello. But, you know, I always do that really boring thing and say, well, can I read the script? I mean, clearly, if it's a pitch of someone who is going to then go ahead and write a script, and you've read some of their previous work or you've seen some of their previous films, that's a slightly different scenario. But if someone comes in and says, you know, this is my idea, and these are I have a particular hate for comparatives and references. Young producers, you know, do spend a lot of time creating charts that tell you that, you know, when this is as successful as the King's Speech, the investors will make back, you know, this amount. And, you know, I certainly, my view of those is that, you know, our industry is a bit too nuanced by and large for comparatives to work. So, you know, I like a straightforward explanation of what the intention is, who the audience is, you know, the how you will reach out to them, and then, you know, is it a good script? Because actually, if it isn't, it doesn't really matter how good the pitch is.
Yeah, it always comes down to the material. You can pitch and be great, but it always really comes down to the material.
Lightning.
I saw that too.
It's very bad.
Poor Henry.
The power to go out any moment.
Thank you for that. Great. The next question is from Charity Buckby. where are the best places to pitch scripts for funding and distribution on the Eastern Seaboard, US and the UK? Small company, big ideas.
I can say that, you know, the Independent Feature IFP puts on a market in September in New York. There's, you know, various festivals that also conduct markets where you can meet industry professional. There's Rotterdam. You know, there's quite a few. There's Sundance Institute. So, you know, there is a lot of industry support for and through organizations like AFI or IFP, Film Independent, Sundance Institute to work with in terms of getting out your projects or pitches. And Cannes too. Cannes has a great producers network.
Great, thank you. And from Elliot Francis Flynn, this is for Pippa and Arianna, whoever would like to respond. What is the most important thing, in your opinion, for young new filmmakers to keep in mind throughout the filmmaking process?
Well, certainly from my point of view, you know, I have never stopped learning through this whole game. You know, every project is different. Every time you think you've got an absolutely watertight package that cannot fail, it does. So you know, it's tough. Learn to deal with rejection. It's a bit like being an actor, I suspect. I mean, the main lesson, it's not quite the answer to the question, but, you know, something I did want to say before we wrap up is, you know, we are so much a people business. And one of the things I've learned over my years is to you know, to choose your people wisely where you are in a position to choose them, to manage them well, to frankly part company with them quickly if you need to. And I never thought I'd ever be able to do this, but I think we all learned to do this, and to just value their contributions. You know, everyone brings so much. It's such a team game, and the directors who recognize that and maximize the support from those, you know, 50 to 80 people who are, well, he used to be a lot closer to them than they will be in the future, I suppose. You know, I think that's the thing, really. People, talented people.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. But also, I think you should, you know, people can do research too, and to inform yourself. And I think one of the most important things is to have the knowledge and be knowledgeable and learn from people and be open and you know, understand who you're talking to when you're talking to them. And it's okay not to know everything, but there's so much research out there on the internet, and, you know, through just watching movies and understanding, like if you're going to approach Pippa, for instance, to know what movies she's made. And you know, there are a lot of things people don't realize, I think, enough of things that you can do yourself to educate yourself about films and ask questions.
Thank you. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. We may have gone over this a little bit before, but if you want to add anything, the question is, how did the partnership with IFC begin on Made in Italy? And have you worked together before?
It's actually twice, Arianna, because didn't you do Heartless?
Yes, yeah, we did Heartless. That was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Yes, that was actually, that would have been that was 2007, probably.
Okay,
So
15 years ago. It began really through Hanway. Hanway was the sales agent that brought us together. So I really have Gabrielle, who I consider a friend as well, to thank for, you know, she understood that she was very good in her sales pitch about this film, because she understood that we would be a good home for it. So really, the relationship began on this film with Hanway. But Pippa and I did work on Heartless together. We were the US distributor for that film.
Yes, we'd worked on Heartless, and then we worked on a film that was probably, that also made you laugh and cry, but slightly more laugh probably, a film called Chalet Girl, which was Felicity Jones's film before the Walking film.
You know what? I love that movie.
You might be talking to me about the sequel before too long.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah.
But we were aware from Hanway that that you know, Gabrielle was going to stalk you, Arianna, and also that you were you know, you went back a long way, let's say. So that seemed to us to be a great thing. You need to, as a producer, you put a vast amount of time and effort. You know, you put up to 18 months of your life into something, and the most heartbreaking thing is when, you know, you end up getting sold to someone who doesn't seem to notice that they've bought it, you know. And, you know, clearly sometimes a sale is better than no sale, but a sale to a company who can do right by the film that you've all made is fantastically, you know, helpful and lovely when you're lucky enough for it to happen. So, yeah.
Jen, any more?
Great, thank you. We just have one last comment from Diana, our board member. She said that she was also an English major, and bravo to Pippa for saying that you want to read the scripts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are all the questions that I see from our participants at the moment.
Well, that's great, because you know what, we're at the end of our webinar already. This went very quickly, I thought. And poor Arianna, I guess you didn't think so. Henry's been trying to get out of there for a while now.
No, it's the only thing that's keeping him calm. I don't know if you can see the lightning.
We do see it, yes.
So it's just been.
Let me just ask you each one thing. What would be your best advice for someone looking to obtain a producer, and anything else you would like to say to the audience or about the film, Pippa?
Oh, what producers always say, which is tell everyone about it. Do all that. I mean, in the old days, that used to be just literally tell everyone. These days, it's, you know, do all the social media. You know, we have a fabulous trailer that IFC put together that's, you know, up online. There's some wonderful publicity ideas coming through to do with, you know, how we renovated the house, how we, you know, created the food. You know, there's some great stuff around the edges of the film that I think is all very beguiling. So please do watch it. What was the other bit of the question? Sorry, Fran.
Oh, I just wanted to know what would be your best advice for someone who's looking to obtain a producer?
It's kind of Arianna's question answers the last question, actually, which is find the right fit. You know, people do certain things, they are certain people, they know certain people, you know, do your research. I mean, you know, when I started out, you know, none of that kind of database really existed. And now you can honestly, you know, track everybody through the business, and you need to have done some of that stuff, and you know, you'll get lucky, because people want that serendipity of the right idea landing on the right desk. It just takes quite a lot of persistence these days. It's very easier.
And it just comes down to doing your homework, correct?
Homework and networking, and, you know, producers want great scripts too. So if you have a great script, they want, you know, everyone's looking for the needle in the haystack. Everyone is looking for that one. And so, you know, if you can network and you know, you've done your research and finding that this producer might be a great fit, there are always ways into getting into that producer.
Mm-hmm. And is that your also, does that correlate with being a distributor also?
Yeah. Again, it's doing your research, and, you know, don't go to Fox Searchlight with a very small indie film. The reality is they probably won't buy it. but somebody like us, we would. But we also could buy, I remember many times competing with studios on certain films, and we were chosen over the studios because of our passion and the fact that we were going to make it the biggest movie on our slate versus just another programmer on a studio slate. So, I think it's just really understanding kind of, who does what and what are the personalities at certain companies, and are there particular passions that people have at certain companies. So, all that information is really is out there for the most part.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that we're doing our part and we're sharing your trailer on social media.
Thank you. Thank you. And
So-
that hopefully, trailer is your best tool, because the trailer can go viral and it's accessible for everybody, and everybody can see a trailer, and it can be shared and put online. So that is really, for any producer, your best tool to sell your film.
Okay, well, thank you. Pippa and Arianna's new film, Made in Italy, written and directed by James Darcy in his directorial debut, starring Hudson Valley's Liam Neeson and his son Michael Richardson, Valeria Bilello, Lindsay Duncan, and others, will be released to the public next month, August 7th. So please tell all your friends and spread the word on social media. And we would like to thank Pippa Cross of Crossday Productions and Arianna Bocca of IFC Films for allowing us to screen Made in Italy, and for generously sharing their time and expertise with us. We wish you every success with Made in Italy. So thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. And Arianna and Henry, you were real troopers.
Thank you. I apologize.
We can see what's going on behind you. And Pippa, we thank you so much. We know it's midnight there. So thank you all for being with us.
Okay.
Sunny, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I think that was it, really. Just thank you so much, and we really hope to speak with you ladies. Always good to see the women, holding up the fort and forging on and working, and I really appreciate you guys taking your time to come and speak to us and help us to push our projects and tell us what to do next. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, audience. Good night now.
Bye.